I guess this sort of leads me into the thing I was saying earlier about like the animations.
Mm,
So you guys have artists on the team, but you don't have animators, and
yeah, yeah,
they're not horribly bad, but I can tell that they were not made by an animator. Like
yes.
they
So
serve the function,
they do.
but
Yeah.
I think the sword is the worst offender in my mind, at least from what I played, because you just it's this big great sword thing, and as I was saying
Mm,
earlier, it kind of feels like slapping them with a pool noodle, and
yeah, yeah.
like it's powerful, but it just doesn't feel powerful.
I absolutely agree with you, and it's one of the biggest bits of feedback we've gotten so far. And again, like proof of concept for the
Mm.
base
Yeah,
game's
yeah.
features. But yeah, animations are a big thing, and we're looking into bringing on an animator to our team at the moment as well to really get sort of that higher quality that the rest of the game
Mm.
deserves to have. Yeah, yeah, it is definitely something that we're super aware of. We know how they need to look. It's just something as a limitation within any team. Really, you've got
Yeah,
areas that you don't have the skills for,
right.
and yeah, it's an area that sorely needs a lot of work. And I can confidently say I
Ah,
think
here's the
we've
sword.
got a good solution coming
Mhm,
in the newer versions of the game.
mhm, mhm. There's not much of the sword in the trailer. Uh,
Oh, did I not
oh
include
no,
that
there is,
enough?
there
I think
is.
that's one shot.
It's like there's like 3 seconds, and it's like later in
Mm,
the video. Um, yeah, here it is. Okay, like it's also hard to tell like how far the range of the sword is.
yeah,
Um, like melee weapons are always going to be a bit weird in a game like this because you always want to be standing away from the enemies, but then a melee weapon
yeah.
you're getting close with it, and
Mm,
because of the animations on the enemies as well, it's hard to tell how close you can be without getting hurt.
yeah. Yeah, so that's just all stuff that we will be working very hard on dialing in.
Mm-hmm.
The user experience sort of feedback on something like that is so important to make sure people understand when they're going to get hit, if they can move out of the way,
Yeah.
and when say a sword swing actually connects with an enemy, and that's where potentially a destructible demon system might come in really handy to
Mm.
really see those sort of attacks connect.
Mm-mm. Because when I like the first thing, because of the art style, people are going to think of, is things like the melee weapons in Doom. Like
Mm,
you hit someone with it, and it's like you feel like you hit something
yeah,
with and not even just that, but like the guns as well. I feel like with the guns, there's also a lack of response from the enemies. I don't know if there
yeah,
is any sort of response. But if whatever response is there, it's like yes, you're hitting them, and yes, you can kind of tell you're hitting them, but they're not like flinching in any way, or at least any
mm,
really noticeable way.
yeah.
Do you guys have a sound guy?
So amongst us designers, we've done a lot of the sound ourselves,
Okay.
to varying levels of success, I think.
Mhm.
For certain weapons, like the revolver, for example,
Mhm.
I worked with Jackson, our co-founder, to sort of bespokely make like all the sort of pullback of the triggers, the shooting sounds, what an actual sort of revolver might have.
Mhm.
Some weapons and enemies got more attention than others, I guess, in
Right,
sort of
right.
the time we were developing
Because it's
this
not just
version.
animation that like gives you impact; it's the sound
Hmm,
of hitting something as
absolutely.
well. Like if you hit
Yeah.
someone with a sword, there should be like some sort of clear slashing and cutting and bleeding sound. And
Yeah.
you hit someone with a gun, like the gun
Mhm.
should have like a really impactful sound, and there should be some sort of like impact to the enemy and what like I'm sure you've thought about all of these things before, but it is definitely the for me like the major thing about the game. Like the
Mm,
rest of it, I can clearly tell there is a lot of work that's gone into it, and it's like it's still fairly early on, but it
mhm.
feels quite polished for the state that it's in.
Yeah.
Then held back by like how it feels to hit things, how it feels to interact with things, and like it's sad because that like it's not something you think about straight away when you're playing a game, but it is something that is very noticeable when it's missing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like sound design and animation design are so important, especially in like an FPS game.
Mhm.
And it's just unfortunate, I think, in the current state of the team that we don't have anybody that's got the professional experience that we really needed,
Mhm.
at least before. We are looking into those solutions now though,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
to hopefully bring that quality up. And we're fully aware of this being sort of the weakest part of the game. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's something that I can assure you will be being changed heavily in the future.
I did see there was a Reddit post from like one of the times that the trailer was posted where someone pointed this out, and like whoever responded, whoever was on the Reddit account at the time was like, "Yeah, we know. It's
Yeah.
all gonna be a rework." Oh, it's you.
Yeah. I actually, as I've been mentioning as well, I was talking about the demons before. Both the demons you see in the demo are being entirely reworked. The lesser demon and the chaos demon, the two that are available there, we're actually in full production for their full reworks at the minute. I think from what I showed people over the weekend, because we've got concepts and some 3D stuff coming through the pipeline, people are like, "Oh, you thought they were cool before? Now they're 10 times better."
Okay, that's good to hear. That is really good to hear. Because I thought like I think the lesser demon, like they worked a lot better from what I could tell. Like the bigger ones, I assume those were added later on and maybe didn't have as much polish to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can say that again. It's ironic you actually bring that up because when we first sort of like had our initial launch build on Itch, the Chaos Demon actually had a magic ranged attack where it would fire like magic sigil circles in a predictive manner, sort of under the player's feet, where it would predict where you were running to and then fire them right under you. And we found that without fail, every fifth round, players were dying because it was so hard, and the feedback on it just wasn't there whatsoever. So we actually, in about 3 or 4 days, stripped that out and re-added its melee attacks. But even still, like just adding a bigger enemy that has a bit more of a range wasn't that interesting. And we're currently concepting the new mechanics for that enemy, and I can tell you now that they're looking pretty cool behind the scene.
Well, one of the things that is obviously going to be something you have to design around is the speed of the player, because it's one thing to just, if you're walking around with like in zombies, you can design them to walk at the speed of a person. You're not moving at the speed of a person this one, you're moving at the speed of like I don't know if it's as fast as in Doom, but it's fairly close. And if you don't have some way to counter that with the enemies, as no matter what sort of enemies you add, you can just run away from them and be halfway across the screen within like 2 steps. It doesn't really matter what's done there. So I assume there's some design being done around that as well.
Oh, definitely. Around the movement right now, we're really dialing that in. I think a lot of us internally in the team are like, "Oh, it's probably a little bit too fast for the type of game that it is right now." So yeah, there's definitely a lot of consideration going into that. And of course, with enemy types being able to slow the player down, potentially environmental hazards doing the same as well. Yeah, we're definitely cooking on a bunch of that stuff.
Well, I would think it'd also be interesting to have enemies that are close to the speed of the player, or maybe do like charges at the player, so the speed actually does matter to get away from them in those cases.
It's great to hear you saying this, because it reaffirms that things we're working on, people are interested in, and people are like, "Oh, naturally that might work for the game," and it's like, well, just you wait and see.